To introduce our speaker for today. She has been a speaker here before, Miriam Camaro. She's a spiritual life coach here in Yakima. Welcome.
Thank you. Is it working? Okay. Well, yes, my name is Miriam Camaro, and I'm a faith and spiritual life coach at Quiet Minds LLC, as I was introduced. And today I'd like to talk about a topic that I found is often overlooked and can really hinder our spiritual journey. And that is finding your voice in prayer. This talk is based on a workshop that I do called Letters to the King. And as I was finding my niche in life coaching, there's marriage life coaching, there's parenting life coaching, there's all sorts of life coaches. There was something very basic, very fundamental that I felt was missing. The school that I went to was called Rivka Malka's Life Coaching School of Healing and Transformation. And in the school, prayer was part of the coaching process. But once we left the school, that kind of disappeared. That connection, that intention spoken to the divine, to the other, to the universe, it just kind of fell by the wayside. It wasn't integrated into what we were doing as coaches. It was mostly just part of lessons. And so that was something that I wanted to integrate into my coaching and have open for people to explore and discover and really dive into if that's really where they wanted to go. And I've just seen amazing results by doing that. Sometimes I joke that I might put myself out of a job by doing that, because sometimes people will come and they haven't prayed in years. They haven't, and it was something that they used to do, but it just dried up and they just felt dry on the inside. They felt like they couldn't do that. They could no longer approach. They could no longer create that connection. And when they came for just that one session, they were coming because they hadn't found a job and they haven't been able to hold down a job. And I asked them, well, is it okay if we pray? They'll say, I haven't prayed in years, or something like that. And then what happens in the 15 minutes that we were just sitting down together, the very next week, the very next month, it clicks. They are able to seize that opportunity. They are able to open themselves up to the blessings that they had spoken in that one prayer that we said together. And it's just been transformational. So, finding your voice in prayer. I'm going to start off with a couple of jokes. just to kind of make my point. Okay, the first joke, this one I read years ago. I think I was like 10 years old in one of my mom's Christian newsletters. And you may have heard it. But it goes that there was this man who was stuck in a storm. And he made it to the top of his roof. And he was a Christian, and he goes up there, and he's just stranded. There's just water everywhere. The wind is howling, the rain is pouring, and so what does he do? He prays, and he says, Dear Lord, please save me from this storm. Save me, save me, save me. Please, please, please. I have faith that you are going to save me. And a few moments later, a rescue boat comes by. And the captain or the person who was on the boat says, come on. We didn't know that you didn't make it on the evacuation. Come on, we just happened to pass by. He says, no, thank you. God is going to save me. Incredulously, the driver of the boat says, what? He says, I appreciate your concern, but God is going to save me, so I'll be just fine. Thank you very much. So he goes along. And the man goes back to praying. He says, Dear God, please, 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 the storm is getting worse. I don't know what I'm going to do. I really need your help. Please save me. Please save me. A few moments later, he hears a sound. And there's a helicopter from the National Guard. And the rescue swimmer gets dropped down onto his roof. He says, wow, we didn't even know that there was anybody out here. Come on, we have room for one more. The man turns to him and says, thank you, but no, I'm good. God is going to save me. Seriously, I have faith that God is going to save me. He's going to answer my prayers. The National Guard swimmer says, what? And again, the man says, he insists, no, I'm staying right here because God is going to save me. Well, the rescue swimmer leaves, and the man dies. Okay, it's a little bit morbid. Stay with me, though. But he goes to heaven, and he goes before the throne of God, and he says, God, I was praying. I had faith 100% that you were going to save me. Why didn't you save me? God turns to him and says, I sent you a rescue boat and a helicopter. What were you wanting? What did you expect? The next joke, this one was told by Rabbi Jay a few weeks ago at his class. And I just thought it was perfect. But within Judaism, sometimes people can get stuck in a certain way of praying, and we'll talk about that later. And so that's kind of what this one is about. So this woman goes to India because she heard about this guru out in India that she needed to talk to. She really needed to talk to him. So she goes and she waits in line. There's like a line all the way up to this like structure. She waits in line, and it took all day to get all the way up there to see this person who apparently gives amazing advice, and he's just up there and he's, meditating all day, all the time. And she gets up there and she says, Yosele, it's time to come home. And the idea is there that within Judaism, they get so caught up in the rote that they don't get to go into the spiritual. So this man, he went and became a guru because he couldn't find spirituality within Judaism. So, what do these two jokes have in common? Sometimes we can get so stuck in one form of prayer, one form of connection, that when it's no longer serving us, or when it's no longer feeding our souls, it's no longer fostering that connection that we need in a new season of life, we can get discouraged. And we can get stuck, sometimes to our own demise. So, for the analytically minded, I got a little bit of both in here. What is prayer? From a anthropologist, sociologist perspective, what is prayer? Well, from the very beginning, as far as back as we can study it, that is, it seems that there's always been this human desire for connection. And not just connection like human connection. We're very much aware that people, we like to be together, but for divine connection. And it completely baffles anthropologists and sociologists because they see different time periods, different pockets of people developing prayer completely independent, completely on their own. They had no contact, and yet they've developed ways of making that connection, of filling this, what seems to be a basic human need. So there's no hard evidence to say, where does this come from? Why do we have this desire? There's many theories depending on the tradition, the faith tradition that you've heard. Maybe because we were created in the image of God, and God had a desire for a connection with us, therefore we desire a connection with him. Others, maybe there's a space within that was created within us that desires that kind of a connection. Maybe there's another opinion that says we desire perfection, and since we can't have a perfect relationship with another human, we desire a perfect relationship with the divine. We're not really sure, but we know it's there. This need, this desire for that connection. Completely widespread. I mean, that's kind of what blew my mind the most, was that different civilizations were developing prayer completely independent and in very similar ways. It's just amazing. So, now, we'll move on to what's the intention? What's the why? Why pray? Yes, we know we have this need, this desire for this connection, but what else is the intention behind the prayer? Why pray? Okay? The first one is for petitioning. asking, or not necessarily demanding. That's the difference between prayer and magical incantations. Usually magical incantations, they have a very specific desire for a specific response in the natural world, an alteration in the natural world. Prayer, not so much. A petition is more sent up as a request, but not a demand that it must take place. And specifically for divine intervention. Then there's confession. This is identifying something that we did wrong or we feel guilty about, and we put it before the divine. And this helps with feelings of guilt and shame. Next, we have intercession. Intercession is similar to a petition, however, slight nuance in that intercession is specifically for someone else. Cultures all around the world, they've developed petitioning, but intercession has some differences from culture to culture. It might not be a thing in some cultures. Or, on the flip side, there's no such thing as petitioning for oneself. There's only intercession. You can only get prayers from someone else. Then we have praise and thanksgiving. This one is pretty self-explanatory. It's saying thank you for blessings, for things that we're appreciating in our lives that we feel like didn't come from any one person, but as a whole, just like a huge opportunity just opened up, doors opening up, a whole complete situation turning around on its head. That couldn't have been just from one person. It had to be orchestrated in some way. Then we have adoration. This one is slightly different from praise and thanksgiving. It's not necessarily a thank you. It's more like, wow, this is amazing. You are amazing. I'm completely in awe of you and your love and your compassion and your mercy and all these different things. So that's adoration. And then last on my list, so this is our summary of things that I found on the internet through research and other modes. So there might be other ones. This is not a cut and dry box. But this is the last one for my list. Mystical union or connection. There's a difference between mystical union or connection compared to all the other ones. All the other ones really address us and our needs, filling our needs or somebody else's needs. But mystical union or connections is more of a meeting the divine on their level, transcending just our world and getting away from our needs and our desires, but really wanting to connect with a higher desire, a higher vision, a higher mission. So now we can go into how around the world, how have people prayed? So far we looked at the intentions of prayer. Where do you come from? What is your intention when you come and you approach prayer? And actually, let's take a moment and think about your intentions when you pray. Is there one of them on the list that maybe you haven't really stepped into in a while, or you haven't come with that approach or with that intention in a while? Is there one intention that feels uncomfortable or very comfortable? What are the feelings that are coming up in your mind, in your heart, as I was explaining petition, confession, intercession, praise and thanksgiving, adoration, and mystical union or connection? How do they sit with you? How does each one sit with you? If there is discomfort, maybe there's something in your past, in your history, that maybe someone introduced it to you, or it was introduced to you in some way that maybe scared you away from it. But from this perspective, from this new perspective of it's just a way, it's just an intention. There's no agenda, it's just an intention. What do you need when you're coming to your prayer? Feel free to take a note of it and think about it later. Food for thought. Next, how to pray. cross-examination over many different cultures. So first we'll look at literary content. There's benedictions. This is the utterance or bestowing of a blessing. Then there's litanies, which is a series of petitions. And as we said, petitions are asking for oneself, a series of them. Ceremonial or ritualistic. These ones are prayers done usually with a group or with a specific layout, and they can have a combination of lots of different literary contents. But generally it's a group setting when it's in a ceremonial or ritual. And there may or may not be a leader involved with a ceremonial or ritualistic type of prayer. There's repetition or formulaic prayers. Can be included in a ceremonial or ritualistic prayer, but for the most part, it's also a series of benedictions, litanies, hymns, and doxologies. But next is hymns. These are religious songs or poems. Maybe put to music, maybe not. Then we have doxologies. This is another combination of a litany, but these are specifically geared with the intention of praise. And then last but certainly not least, there's free prayers. These are unscripted, very personal, very original to just what is on your mind, what is on your heart. And you can mix and match these however you want. But once again, which ones haven't you tried in a while? Which ones have you never tried out of maybe fear or discomfort? Benedictions, litanies, repetition, formulaic prayers, hymns, doxologies, and free prayer. We can all get stuck in just one for some reason, or we might get stuck avoiding one for whatever reason. That's okay. Take note of it. It's part of the journey, part of the learning, part of our process. Another how is postures, something that we might not even think about. Growing up, we get introduced to one particular way of praying, that we have to do a certain thing. But there's so much more. There can be so much more in our prayers, so much to enliven them. One common one is kneeling when you're praying. There's also supine, flat supine. There's raised hands. There's standing, so you can be sitting and with having your raised hands. There's looking up. There's outspread arms. There's clasped hands, and there's pressed hands. There's hands on subjects of prayer. And there's dancing, and all combinations thereof. Which one have you not tried recently? Which one has maybe not even ever occurred to you? Get creative. There's something about the posture when you're aligned with your intention, with your why, with the liturgical mode, that looking up just frees up the space for you to say what is on your heart. Sometimes you just feel broken down and you want to kneel. You just need some strength. You just need that connection. Sometimes you're just in awe of the world around you and the beauty of everything. You just stand there with your arms out. There's something so powerful about just the posture. Have fun with it. And then once again, take a moment for self-reflection. What how have you not tried recently? What how feels uncomfortable? What how do you really drawn to? One of my favorite rabbis, his name is Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. He said that Judaism is the religion of the Jews, and God is the God of all peoples. And then, to caveat that, my rabbi, Rabbi Jay, here in Yakima at Temple Shalom. Whenever we start to pray or whenever we're setting the intention, he doesn't necessarily go straight to a petition or to benedictions or anything when it's that free prayer time. And he always starts out with, what face of God are you seeking today? He leaves it open. He leaves it open for you to examine, what do I need? What part of the divine, of the infinite, do I need just today? It might change tomorrow. It might change in an hour. But just right now, for this moment, as we're stepping into prayer, what face do you seek today? And I'd like to do that. If you could put the next slide up. This is a summary. I had wanted to have this as a handout for everyone, but my printer was not working. So Chris has it if you would like the list and everything. It's really fun. So part of the workshop is we get to basically create our own prayer. We start with the intention. What is it that we need? What void do we need filled at that time in that space? Is it the connection of a divine father? Is it the connection of a divine mother? Is it the connection of a divine brother, sister, friend? Then we start with the intention. Are we asking for clarity? Are we asking for healing? Is it praise and thanksgiving? Just saying thank you, filling ourselves with gratitude. And then, after selecting the intention, we draw a line, or we'll circle the literary content. And then we'll circle the posture. And then we draw a line to connect them all. And something about the connection of these circles really helps the flow of our prayer as we go into it within the workshop. It opens up like this pathway for not just our minds, but for our souls to follow in its own flow, its own pattern, its own expression. And it's beautiful. Some people that I've worked with, they will say that their intention, what they really need right now, and this is part of the reason why I named the workshop Letters to the King, they really needed to know that they were being taken care of, that they were being taken care of and looked after by a benevolent, awesome king. And so they will literally sit down and write a letter. Dear Universe King, or just Dear King, this is where I'm at right now. This is what I need right now. This is what I'm experiencing. This is my reality. And maybe they'll even, at the very end, they'll sign it, your princess or your prince. Just to tie in even that fatherly divine connection at the very end. And it's amazing to see the transformation that people can have in their prayer lives just by doing the simple exercise of evaluating intention, literary content, and postures. So I'll ask Chris to print these off, and then you'll be able to have them. And you can every so often, sometimes we get into these habits where we stick to just one for a really long time, and then we wonder, wow, I really don't feel like praying right now, or I really, it's kind of a drag, or I'm not getting what I want. Feel free to do a self-evaluation. Get some new ideas, get some new ways, methods, modes to invigorate your prayer life. Because for some reason, it's a human need. Thank you so much.